Chapter 361. Hearing that someone was making trouble at the bar and asked to see her by name, Chifeng was also a little angry. In the provincial capital, no one has dared to provoke her like this in these years, not even the major martial arts families dared to do so. Chifeng hurriedly led people to the bar, while David sat struttingly on a chair and waited, gently rubbing the Taipei ring on his hand with one hand. The reason why David asked the one-eyed dragon to call the head of the Chifeng Hall was because he remembered what Lin Tianyu said. Maybe the provincial capital also has a branch of the Taipei Hall. As for whether it is this Chifeng Tang, David doesn't know, so he wants to meet this Chifeng. If this Chifeng Tang is also his subordinate, then there will be less trouble in the provincial capital in the future. After half an hour, the door was opened, and a woman in her 30s, with her hair tucked on top of her head, walked in, followed by two people, both of whom were exuding radiance. The breath of a strong man is much stronger than the breath of this one-eyed dragon. Teacher. Seeing Chifeng coming, the one-eyed dragon hurriedly greeted him. Chifeng looked at the mess in the bar, and the security guards were lying on the ground, and the anger rose instantly. One-eyed dragon, who wants to see me? Chifeng asked sharply. It's me. David stood up slowly. When he saw Chifeng for the first time, David was a little surprised. He didn't expect this Chifeng to be so beautiful. David thought that the woman who fought and killed must look like a dominatrix. Who are you? Do you have any grudges with me, Chifeng Tang? Although Chifeng is full of anger now, she still restrains herself, and instead of doing it as soon as they meet, she asks David. We have no grudges. David shook his head. Then why are you making trouble in my bar? Chifeng frowned tightly. At this time, the one-eyed dragon was sweating profusely. He was really afraid that David would tell what happened in the first place. In that case, he would definitely be punished. However, David did not speak, but deliberately revealed the Taipei ring, showing it in front of Chifeng, with a pair of eyes secretly observing Chifeng's expression. When Chifeng's eyes fell on the Taipei ring in David's hand, the whole person was shocked, and then his eyes widened, and light flashed in his eyes, but the light was fleeting, and Chifeng also returned to the original look. However, this change of expression still fell into David's eyes. David was instantly overjoyed and secretly relieved. Everyone let me out, strictly control all entrances and exits, no one is allowed to come in without my order. Chifeng suddenly ordered loudly. Although their subordinates were full of doubts, these people did not dare to disobey the order of the hall master. They also helped the security guards on the ground out, and guarded all the entrances and exits. When only David and Chifeng were left in the entire bar, Chifeng immediately knelt down in front of David with a look of excitement. Chifeng, the head of Chifeng Hall, meet the head of Taipei Hall. Because David knew it for a long time, there was no surprise, but he smiled lightly. Get up. Chifeng stood up and respectfully waited for David's instructions. Don't be so restrained, sit down. David waved his hand towards Kai Feng. Kai Feng sat opposite David, and David poured Kai Feng a glass of wine himself. Palace Master, I don't know why you suddenly came to the provincial capital to visit my Chifeng Tang. Kai Feng asked suspiciously. I came to the provincial capital because someone forced me to come, and I brought you here. I was just on a whim. I didn't expect that your Chifeng Tang was really the entrance of the dragon sect. Do you know what the other entrances of the dragon sect are? Place. David asked Kai Feng. Chapter 362. Chifeng shook his head. Palace Master, we have 13 hall entrances in Taipei Hall, but there is no connection between our hall entrances, so we don't know each other. Didn't the old hall master tell you? Thinking of the Irvin, David was speechless for a while. The Irvin was in the prison. He was not teaching him exercises all day, or drinking and sleeping. I don't know where this guy got the wine, he drank it almost every day. Later, when he handed the Taipei ring to him, he didn't tell David what the ring was or where the halls were. If he hadn't met Lin Tianyu, David would not have known that this ring was actually the heavenly dragon token. Don't mention it. David sighed, but I have found two halls now, one is your Chifeng Hall, and the other is the Jui Hall in Horrendal. Palace Master, are you talking about the underground emperor of Horrendal, Lin Tianyu? Kai Feng was slightly startled. Yes, it's him. David nodded. It turns out that Lin Tianyu and I are the same person, I really can't think of it. Kai Feng smiled unexpectedly, and then asked David, Palace Master, you said that someone forced you to come to the provincial capital, did you encounter some trouble? Already. I killed the Wei family, and now the Zhang family wants to kill my whole family. For my family's comfort, I can only come to the provincial capital. David explained with a faint smile. The hall master is David. Kai Feng raised her voice suddenly, her face full of surprise. Why, you know me too. David looked at Kai Feng's expression and questioned. Of course, the name of the palace master is in the upper-class family in the provincial capital, and almost no one knows it. At the Martial Arts Alliance conference, the Zhang family has said it secretly many times, and I hope that the major families will cooperate with their Zhang family to catch you. In addition, it's all the Wei family's properties, and the Zhang family doesn't allow anyone to interfere. But when the Zhang family speaks, I'm just AF. Art, I can do whatever I want, how can I let them be controlled by the Zhang family? I have already sent someone to secretly take over the Wei family's property, and I also put down my words, as long as Wen Chifengtang meets the Hall Master, no one is allowed to help the Zhang family, then the Wei family deserves to be destroyed, this is retribution. I really didn't expect that all these things were done by you, the Hall Master. I have always wanted to meet this young hero, and now I finally see it, but the Hall Master, don't worry, as long as my Chifengtang is still there, I will never let it go. The Zhang family touches you in the slightest, the big deal is that we follow the Zhang family to go shopping, and it is uncertain who will win and who will lose. Chifeng looked at David, the more she talked, the more excited she became. Seeing Chifeng praising herself so much, David felt a little embarrassed, and smiled slightly. If I use your Chifeng Hall, I will naturally contact you. My current identity is not easy to reveal, so I call me Mr. Chen outside. That's it. Understood. Kai Feng nodded. After chatting with Kai Feng for a while, David was ready to go back, otherwise Ji Yulinger would be worried. When David and Chifeng walked out of the bar, the entire bar was surrounded by people from the third floor of Chifengtang, and seeing Chifeng coming out, One-Eyed Dragon hurriedly stepped forward. Hall Master, are you alright? Go away. Kai Feng pushed the One-Eyed Dragon, and then respectfully said to David, Mr. Chen, please. David nodded slightly and walked out of the bar. Seeing Chifeng's respectful attitude towards David, everyone was stunned, especially the One-Eyed Dragon, whose jaw almost dropped in shock. All Chifengtang obey orders. Chifeng suddenly burst out. Whoa, whoa. All the people in Chifengtang knelt down on one knee, waiting for orders. From today onwards, everyone must obey Mr. Chen's orders, and those who dare to disobey the order will be executed. Follow your orders. Everyone in Chifengtang roared in unison. The One-Eyed Dragon was trembling all over at this time, and he almost urinated his pants. Standing up tremblingly, the One-Eyed Dragon didn't dare to look at David. David smiled slightly, patted the One-Eyed Dragon on the shoulder, and left without saying anything. Chapter 363. Ji Yulinger's home. At this time, Ji Yulinger was a little bored watching TV, spraying some perfume in the house, thinking that David would live with her for a while. Ji Yulinger's heart was still a little tangled. Dong dong dong. Suddenly, there was a knock on the door. Ji Yulinger thought it was David who came back, so she got up and said, Ji Yufeng doesn't know how to send you back. If I'm not at home, I'll see how you get in. Ji Yulinger said, and opened the door, but after the door was opened, there were two men in suits standing outside, with indifferent expressions on their faces. After seeing Ji Yulinger open the door, a man in a suit said, Are you Miss Ji Yulinger? Not bad. Ji Yulinger nodded. We are from the Zhang family, our master invites you to come over. The man in the suit said, but he reached out to grab Ji Yulinger, he didn't mean to invite him at all. Ji Yulinger was startled, and she quickly stepped back, trying to close the door. But it was too late, two men in suits had already rushed in. Do you know that you are trespassing in the house? I am a person from the Protector Pavilion. Ji Yulinger's face became a little ugly, and she reprimanded the two men in suits. But the two men in suits didn't seem to be afraid at all, and shot directly at Ji Yulinger. Ji Yulinger flashed her figure again, clasped the wrist of one of the men in a suit, and suddenly took advantage of her strength, jumped up directly, and kicked the other man in a suit with one foot. But Ji Yulinger's foot was just kicked out, but someone grabbed her ankle, and with a sudden pull, Ji Yulinger's body was unstable and fell directly to the ground. Immediately after, two men in suits, one left and one right, buckled Ji Yulinger's shoulders, grabbed Ji Yulinger hard, and lifted Ji Yulinger up, making Ji Yulinger unable to move. Let go of me, you ba 5 tards, let me go. Ji Yulinger struggled, but to no avail. The strength gap between her and the two men in suits is a bit big, and she is not their opponent at all. Miss Ji Yu, you are obedient, we will not hurt you, if you are trying to resist, we are welcome. One of the men in suits said with a cold look. Seeing the eyes of the man in the suit, Ji Yulinger was so frightened that she closed her mouth and let two people escort her out. But as soon as I walked to the door, I met David who came back from the bar. David. When Ji Yulinger saw David, she hurriedly shouted. David was stunned and glanced at the two men in suits, and after the two men in suits also looked at each other at the same time, one of them kicked David involuntarily. Be careful, they are from the Zhang family. Ji Yulinger reminded David. When another man in a suit holding Ji Yulinger saw this, a hand knife hit Ji Yulinger in the back of the head, and Ji Yulinger immediately fainted. This time, the two men in suits attacked David together. David's eyes froze, and he went up to him directly. He stretched out his hands and grabbed the wrists of the two men in suits. This. The two men in suits showed panic in their eyes. Although the two of them were not experts in the Zhang family, they joined forces, and even an internal force warrior could fight. But facing David, the two were restrained as soon as they made a move, which shocked the two men in suits. Click. Without the slightest hesitation and pity, David directly broke the wrists of the two people. What? A shrill scream came from the mouths of the two, and cold sweat instantly flowed out. What are you doing with Ji Yulinger? David asked the two men in suits. We do not know. The two men in suits shook their heads at the same time. Chapter 364. David suddenly flew his feet up and kicked directly on the knees of the two men in suits. The legs of the two men in suits bent down strangely in an instant, and they were all broken. The screams sounded again, but this time David didn't ask any more questions, but continued to shoot, interrupting the hands and feet of the two men in suits, and directly abolishing the two. Looking at the two people who were slumped to the ground, their faces full of pain, David said indifferently, "What are you doing with Ji Yulinger?" "Yes, it was ordered by our master, saying that he wanted to know your whereabouts from Miss Gu's mouth." The two of them couldn't take it any longer and could only speak truthfully. David frowned. He didn't expect the Zhang family to be so rampant, and he didn't care about the identity of the detective of Ji Yulinger's law enforcement pavilion. Glancing at the fainted Ji Yulinger, murderous intent flashed in David's eyes. After gently picking up Ji Yulinger and placing it on the sofa, David went downstairs with a man in a suit in one hand, threw it into the trunk of the car, and walked directly towards Yang's house. At this time, the Zhang family is brightly lit. In a certain room of the Zhang family, the shrill roars of two teenagers sounded, and the roars seemed to come from the abyss of H3LL, and the sound of laughter came from the room. The two Zhang family bodyguards who were guarding the door shuddered when they heard the roars in the room, with goosebumps all over their bodies. You said that Master Buhu looked at a kind face. How could he have such a perverted hobby? A Zhang family bodyguard couldn't help but say. Shish. Another Zhang family bodyguard hurriedly made a mute action, looked around carefully and said, You don't want to live. Be careful if the master hears it, kill your whole family. This frightened the bodyguard so much that he hurriedly closed his mouth. I don't know how long it took, the roaring in the room stopped, and there was no movement at all. Come on, take it out. Master Buhuo's voice sounded in the room. The two bodyguards hurried in, and when they saw the bodies of the two girls on the ground, they all gasped for air. I saw that the two girls were naked and covered with bruises all over their bodies. But the two bodyguards didn't dare to look at it, and hurriedly took out the girl's body one by one. As soon as I went out, I saw the housekeeper walking over, also frowning at the bodies of the two girls, and exhorting the two bodyguards, find a place to bury it, and you are not allowed to tell anyone about today's affairs, otherwise you will have it. Your life. Got it. The two bodyguards nodded again and again. How dare they say more? The housekeeper, Lao Lu, sighed, shook his head, and walked into Master Buhuo's room. At this time, Master Buhu was lying on the sofa, his face full of satisfaction, a cigarette in his mouth, so uncomfortable. Master Buhuo, the medicinal materials for refining the pills are ready. I wonder when Master Buhuo will be able to make pills. Butler Lu asked cautiously. Put it down. Master Buhu still lay on the sofa and didn't move. He waved his hand and said, How are the medicinal materials prepared for our Xuanyu Valley? We are already hurrying to prepare, and it is estimated that we will be ready in the next 2 days. Our master said that we will send people to Xuanyu Valley with Master Buhuo. Butler Lao Lu replied. Go back and tell you masters, when the medicinal materials are ready, I will concoct alchemy anytime. Master Buhuo said unhurriedly. Understood. Butler Lao Lu nodded, then took out a cloth bag from his body and put it on the table. It was filled with some precious medicinal herbs over 100 years old, which were used to refine the life extension pill. After the housekeeper Lao Lu left, he immediately went to Zhang Zhengzhang's room. At this time, Zhang Zhengzhang was waiting for news. Chapter 365. Old Lu, how's it going? When did Master Buhuo say you are going to prepare alchemy? Seeing the housekeeper coming back, Zhang Zhengzhang hurriedly asked. Master Buhuo said, when we prepare the medicinal materials for Xuanyu Valley, he will concoct alchemy. Butler Lao Lu replied. Damn, these guys are really cautious. Zhang Zhengzhang couldn't help but swear, and then said to the housekeeper Lao Lu, how are the preparations for the medicinal materials? Master, Xuanyuegu wants all the medicinal materials that are more than 100 years old, and the price is extremely expensive. I have negotiated with the Yaowang mansion many times, and the price cannot be negotiated at all. I am afraid that this batch of medicinal materials will cost tens of billions of dollars. The housekeeper, Lao Lu, looked confused. Zhang Zhengzhong frowned, pondered for a moment, and said, "Give me back all the funds, and the Wei family's property will all be sold. Be sure to prepare the medicinal materials for Xuanyu Valley." Understood. Butler Lu nodded. Zhang Zhengzhong worked hard to keep his life alive. The money is all outside his actions, and he can earn it back if he doesn't have it. Master, something happened. This is, a servant rushed in a hurry. In the middle of the night, what's the roar? Say something slowly. Butler Lao Lu reprimanded his servants. The servant shuddered with fright, and hurriedly said, "Master, 2 of us died at the door. Come and see." When Zhang Zhengzhong heard it, his anger immediately went straight to the top of his head. The Zhang family has been standing in the provincial capital for 100 years, and there has never been such a thing. Someone dared to kill their Zhang family at the gate of Yang's family. Zhang Zhengzhong was accompanied by the housekeeper, Lao Lu, and hurried to the door. At this time, there were already many Zhang family bodyguards surrounding the door, watching the movements around them vigilantly. After Zhang Zhengzhong arrived, he saw 2 Zhang family bodyguards lying on the ground. Their heads had been blown up, and they could not tell their identities at all, and their limbs were also strangely bent, obviously interrupted. The housekeeper, Lao Lu, identified it carefully, and his face instantly became ugly. "Master, these are the 2 people who were sent to catch that girl from the Jiyu family." "What? Who did it? Could it be that the girl from the Jiyu family couldn't do it?" The anger on Zhang Zhengzhong's body was burning, and killing people in such a cruel way at their door was obviously following their Zhang family's provocation. "Master, we have surveillance, you can tell at a glance. Go to the monitoring room," Zhang Zhengzhong ordered. After arriving at the monitoring room and calling out the monitoring, Zhang Zhengzhong watched with anger in his eyes. "I saw a car parked in front of Yang's house during the surveillance. David got out of the car, and when he got out of the car, he deliberately glanced at the surveillance and showed a sneer. Immediately afterwards, David took out the 2 bodyguards of the Zhang family from the trunk of the car. It was obvious that their hands and feet were broken at this time. David carried the Zhang family's bodyguard, walked under the monitor, looked up and slammed a punch at the bodyguard's head. Buff. I saw that the bodyguard's head was like a watermelon, and it was instantly blown up, and blood splattered everywhere. Even across the screen, everyone who saw this scene could not help but shiver and shudder. David used the same method to blow the head of another Zhang family bodyguard. After killing the 2 Zhang family bodyguards, David made a wiping action under the surveillance, which was full of provocation. Immediately afterwards, David got in the car and left, and the bodies of the 2 Zhang family bodyguards were just thrown at the gate of the Zhang family. What? Zhang Zhengzhong was furious and slammed into the monitor with a ruthless punch. "I must kill him, I must kill him. Zhang Zhengzhong is going to be mad. This is already a blatant provocation. The Zhang family has never been so provocative in 100 years. Chapter 366. Sir, calm down. The housekeeper Lao Lu hurriedly persuaded, "Master, our top priority is to prepare the medicinal materials for Xuanyuegu first, so that Master Buhuo can train Master to prolong his life. Then David is just a clown, let him jump around more. What can we do in a few days?" Now, the major families of the Martial Arts Alliance are all eager to move on the Wei family's property, and Chifengtang has already begun to erode the Wei family's property. We must solve this matter first and collect the money. Chifengtang, Zhang Zhengzhong's eyes flashed with cold light. This Chifengtang is always against our Zhang family. Sooner or later, I will drive them out of the Martial Arts Alliance and out of the provincial capital. Tomorrow I will hold an alliance meeting and beat these guys hard. If it doesn't work, I will see the real chapter in the ring. After Zhang Zhengzhong finished speaking, he punched the table and smashed the table directly. David drove away from Yang's house, ready to go back to Ji Yulinger's house. But just after walking not far, I found that there were 2 cars behind me. The Zhang family's movements are quite fast. The corner of David's mouth raised slightly, and he drove the car to the side of the road and stopped. He didn't want to run, and there was no need to run. It was inevitable to fight with the Zhang family. David's car just stopped, 2 cars parked directly in front of him, 4 strong men got out of the car behind, then hurried to the car in front, and opened the door respectfully. The door of the car opened, and a middle-aged man in his 50s who was wearing a training suit with a beard on his face walked down. Seeing these people, David frowned slightly. These people didn't look like the Zhang family. Master, Brother Yi Yang was killed by him. At this moment, a strong man pointed at David and said angrily. When David heard it, he realized that these people were from the Timan Pavilion, and 2 of them were the guys who were with Yi Yang. The owner of the Timan Pavilion looked up and down at David and said, "Boy, you kill my disciple, yet you dare to stay in the provincial capital. Does this mean you don't take my Timan Pavilion in your eyes?" Seeing the appearance of the owner of the Timan Pavilion, David couldn't help but smile. He wondered why these hard Qigong practitioners had such a long appearance, just like what was engraved in the mold. When you were an apprentice, take it as you see it. Seeing David even laughing, the owner of the Iron Gate Pavilion said angrily, "What are you laughing at? Can't you hear me? It's no wonder that Yi Fengchun and that Yi Yang are so unbearable. With a master like you, you definitely won't be able to teach any good disciples. It's obviously your disciple who wants to kill me, but I'm not as good as others. You are the master's discipline. If you are not strict, if you don't reflect on yourself, you even found me." David smiled coldly. "Then Yi Fengchun has left the division. I can care about his life and death, but Yi Yang is my disciple, no matter why he kills you, but you can't kill him, otherwise you will be my enemy." The blue veins on the forehead of the owner of the Timan Pavilion burst out, obviously angry. "What about being an enemy of your Timan Pavilion? If you have the ability, do it. If you don't have the ability, get out of the way. I don't like talking shish." David was very disgusted by the domineering appearance of the owner of the Iron Gate Pavilion. "Good boy, you are the first person who dares to speak like me." The owner of the Timan Pavilion was furious, and the breath on his body exploded instantly, pressing towards David. In the faint, golden light flickered around the body of the owner of the Iron Gate Pavilion, like a fairy descending to the earth. For a while, sand and rocks were flying around, and the wind swept away. Seeing this, the other disciples of the Iron Gate Pavilion all hid aside. Watching the performance of the master of the Iron Gate Pavilion, David looked indifferent and smiled coldly. "You are indeed better than your apprentice, but you want to kill me like this, but it is too far behind." Chapter 367. Seeing that David was calm, the owner of the Iron Gate Pavilion frowned slightly. His burst of breath was so great that even an internal force warrior could hardly bear it, but David in front of him seemed to be nothing. "Boy, you do have some skills, but today you meet me, death is your destination." The owner of the Timan Pavilion shouted angrily, instantly raising his breath to the extreme. The terrifying coercion shrouded David again, and the disciples of the Timan Pavilion retreated one after another, hiding away again. "Tricks of the eagle, if you don't have anything else, I'll leave." David looked at the owner of the Timan Pavilion with disdain in his eyes, and turned to leave. The owner of the Timan Pavilion was stunned for a moment, which made him feel ashamed. In front of his own disciple, he was so looked down upon by a young man in his early 20s. How could he mess around after that? "Boy, go to H3LL. The owner of the Timan Pavilion was furious, and he swung an iron fist towards David. Every step he took was like an earthquake, making a thumping sound. David stopped and didn't look back at all. A terrifying aura suddenly erupted from his body. The breath was overwhelmingly pressing towards the owner of the Timan Pavilion, and the owner of the Timan Pavilion was instantly pressed to a halt, and his feet were hard. Cracks began to appear on the ground. The face of the owner of the Iron Gate Pavilion changed, and his eyes were full of incredulity. He did not expect David to have such a terrifying aura at such an age. The breath on David's body is like a big mountain, pressing firmly on the body of the owner of the Iron Gate Pavilion. The owner of the Iron Gate Pavilion can't move forward at all, his legs are slightly bent, and a deep footprint has been stepped on under his feet. "Don't you like to use power to oppress people? Then I will let you taste the taste of being oppressed today." David turned around slowly and looked indifferently at the main road of the Timan Pavilion. "Stop, stop." Just at this moment, several cars came quickly, and after the cars stopped, Ji Yulinger ran out of the car and shouted loudly. Afterwards, Li Shui hurried down from the car with more than a dozen detectives from the law enforcement pavilion. Seeing Ji Yulinger coming, David's momentum stopped, and the owner of the Timan Pavilion felt relieved, and the whole person stepped back a few steps. "David, are you all right?" Ji Yulinger asked David eagerly. "I'm fine." David shook his head, and then asked strangely, "Why are you here?" Ji Yulinger glanced at David complainingly and said, "After I woke up, I found that you were not there, and the two Zhang family members were also gone. I was afraid that you would go to the Zhang family to make trouble, so I hurriedly contacted Pavilion Master Li to save you." Seeing Ji Yulinger's nervous appearance, David immediately said a little embarrassed, "I just sent the two Zhang family back, and I didn't make trouble in the Zhang family. I'm sorry, I made you worry. You'll be fine." Ji Yulinger breathed a sigh of relief, then looked at the head of the Timan Pavilion and said, "Master of the Timan Pavilion, I was at the scene when David killed your disciple, and it was your disciple who committed the murder first. And even attacked me. David killed him in self-defense, he can't be blamed for this. The owner of the Timan Pavilion looked at Ji Linger and snorted coldly, "Girl from the Ji family, for your grandfather's sake, don't worry about this, you can't, I must kill him today." The owner of the Timan Pavilion was full of anger, and it seemed that he was really angered by David just now. "Master Tigon, Linger has already said that it was your disciple who committed the murder first. David is right about this. I know you hurt your disciple and you are in a bad mood. Give me a face and ask David to apologize to you. Forget about it." Li Shui stepped forward and said to the owner of the Iron Gate Pavilion. The pavilion master of the provincial capital's law enforcement pavilion, the size is also in charge, so he has to give face anyway. Chapter 368. But who knew that Li Shui's voice just fell, and the head of the Iron Gate Pavilion turned cold and said, "Li Shui, there is nothing about your guardian pavilion here, you'd better leave it alone, otherwise don't blame me for being rude to you." Li Shui's face turned cold, and the anger on his body also rose. In front of David, he, the pavilion owner of the Dharma Protector Pavilion, really had no face given to him. The Zhang family doesn't want to give face, and now even a Timan Pavilion doesn't give face, which makes Li Shui feel that he has lost all face. "Master of the Iron Pavilion, you need to think clearly about the consequences of starting with the Dharma Protector Pavilion." With a gloomy face, Li Shui threatened the owner of the Iron Gate Pavilion. "Bah, don't scare me, I can bear any consequences, I will kill this kid today." The owner of the Timan Pavilion said. His body suddenly flashed a faint golden light again, and that layer of faint golden light was like armor, protecting the entire body of the Timan Pavilion owner. Seeing this, Li Shui's expression changed suddenly, and he couldn't help but step back 2 steps. "Master Tigon, are you really going to do it? Stop talking nonsense, just get out of the way if you don't want to die." The owner of the Timan Pavilion shouted, and then the huge body rushed directly towards David. At this moment, a tender voice sounded, "Ironbird, it's FCU King against you." With this coquettish shout, a figure instantly appeared in front of the owner of the Timan Pavilion, and slapped the owner of the Timan Pavilion in the face. This time, everyone was stunned, and the owner of the Iron Gate Pavilion also stopped, covering his swollen half-face with one hand. Whoa, whoa. At this time, dozens of people suddenly poured out, directly surrounding everyone in the Iron Gate Pavilion. At this time, everyone saw clearly that the person who came was Chifeng, the head of Chifengtang. Kai Feng, I have no grievances or enmity between my Timan Pavilion and your Chifeng Hall, why are you hitting me? Facing Chifeng, the owner of the Timan Pavilion was obviously a little timid. Art, you dare to be disrespectful to Mr. Chen, and you say that you have no grievances with me, Chifengtang, IFCU King. As Chifeng said, he was about to kick the owner of the Iron Gate Pavilion when he lifted his foot, causing the Timan Pavilion owner to back away again and again. "Chen, Mr. Chen." The owner of the Iron Gate Pavilion looked at David in surprise. He didn't understand how this Chifeng was so respectful to David and even called Mr. Chen. "Ironbird, the person who brought you now leave immediately. If you let me know that you are making trouble with Mr. Chen, I will expel your Tiamunguan from the Martial Arts Alliance, so that you have no place to stay in the provincial capital," Chifeng said fiercely to the owner of the Iron Gate Pavilion. Although the owner of the Iron Gate Pavilion was unwilling, in the end, he left with people in despair. Following Chifengtang against him, he didn't have the guts yet. How could Chifengtang be one of the 4 consuls in the Martial Arts Alliance? It would be too easy to drive them out of the Martial Arts Alliance. What's more, the Chifeng is so powerful, he knows that he is not an opponent, so he can only take people away. "Mr. Chen, are you all right?" After driving away the people in the Timan Pavilion, Chifeng walked to David and asked respectfully. David smiled and shook his head. Seeing Chifeng being so respectful to David, Ji Linger and that Li Shui were dumbfounded, looking at David in shock, their eyes full of incredible. "Jay Master Li, thank you today." David followed Li Shui and said. No matter what, Li Shui did stand up for himself today. "You're welcome, I didn't do anything, since I'm fine, then I'll go." Li Shui smiled awkwardly and hurriedly left. At this time, Li Shui's heart seemed to have 10,000 Sao Nima rushing past. He suddenly found out that it is best for him not to participate in David. He originally thought that David had no power and power. David apologized to the owner of the Iron Gate Museum. Now it seems that the forces behind David don't know how terrifying it is. Chifeng, the head of the dignified Chifeng Hall, is so polite to David. Li Shui suddenly discovered that in the whole incident, he was the least powerful party. Chapter 369. How did you and Chifeng meet? On the way back, Ji Linger looked at David with a strange face and asked. How did you know what? David pretended to be dumbfounded. Don't pretend to me, why is Chifeng, the head of Chifengtang, so polite to you? Don't tell me, she likes you. Ji Linger sat in the co-pilot, staring at David, as if he wanted to see something from David's expression. But at this time David's face was calm, without the slightest expression fluctuation. Ji Linger couldn't see anything. You may have guessed right. Maybe that Chifeng likes me. After all, what woman doesn't like handsome guys? David smiled playfully. Stop being narcissistic. If you don't say it, then get out of the car and ignore you in the future. Ji Linger threatens David. David smiled helplessly, and could only tell the story of following Ji Yufeng to the Phoenix Bar, then having a conflict and getting to know Kai Feng. Of course, he couldn't tell Ji Linger that Chifeng was the subordinate of his dragon sect, so he could only say that Chifeng fought with Chifeng, and Chifeng lost a move, so he became very respectful. You actually defeated Chifeng. Ji Linger's face suddenly became surprised after hearing this. What's so surprising about beating her? David looked at Ji Linger puzzled and asked. If you can defeat Chifeng, you might be able to defeat the Zhang Zhang. Zhang Zhang stepped into the strength of Neijing Grandmaster very early, but this Chifeng is not bad. I heard that he has also stepped into Neijing Grandmaster. If it is true in this way, you don't have to be afraid of the Zhang family. Ji Linger's face is full of excitement. If David can really defeat that Zhang Zhang, everything will be easier. What's the matter? I've said it before, the Zhang family didn't care about me at all. David sneered. Okay, don't blow it, there is more than one Zhang in the Zhang family, you should be careful or be careful. Ji Linger poured a basin of cold water on David. But David didn't care. No matter what masters the Zhang family had, David would not take it seriously. After all, the warriors and their immortals are not of the same order of magnitude, so there is nothing to be afraid of. Back at Ji Linger's residence, it was already midnight. Some sleepy Ji Linger washed up and was about to go to bed when Ji Yufeng came. When Ji Yufeng entered the room and saw David lying on the sofa, he screamed as if he had seen a ghost. Ji Yufeng, what are you doing here in the middle of the night? Roaring like crazy. Ji Linger angrily shouted at Ji Yufeng. Sister, isn't he dead? Ji Yufeng trembled and pointed at David on the sofa. Dead. Ji Linger was stunned. At this time, David opened his eyes and looked at Ji Yufeng. Who told you that I was dead? Brother Long who offended Chifengtang, how can there be any reason to live? Did Brother Long let you go? Ji Yufeng asked incredulously. David smiled. He didn't care about the guy in ancient style. This guy is too cowardly. What nonsense are you talking about? It's all your fault that you took him to a bar and provoked Chifengtang, but it's all right now. Ji Linger told Ji Yufeng about David's defeat of Kai Feng in the bar. And the matter of Chifeng respecting David, he also followed the ancient style. When Ji Yufeng heard it, the whole person suddenly became excited. Damn it, brother-in-law, I didn't expect you to be too good to defeat Chifeng. After that, even if we meet someone from Chifengtang, we can still walk sideways. Ji Yufeng rushed to David's side, squatted down and looked at David on the sofa. Seeing that David didn't speak, Ji Yufeng continued, brother-in-law, why don't you sleep in the same room as my sister? It's an age, even if you're not married, it's normal to sleep together, let alone sleep, even if you have a child out of wedlock. It doesn't matter. Chapter 370. Ji Yufeng, what nonsense are you talking about? I'll kick you to death. Ji Linger's face was flushed with shame, and she kicked Ji Yufeng fiercely. Although he was kicked, Ji Yufeng still said, Sister, you are too old-fashioned, no wonder you can't find a boyfriend when you are so old, it's hard for my brother-in-law not to dislike you, you have to know how to cherish it, how can you let him sleep on the sofa? Brother-in-law, get up, I'll take you to the big hotel to sleep comfortably. Ji Yufeng shook David's body. Don't go, I'm afraid that there will be trouble, you run first. David closed his eyes and said. When Ji Yufeng heard this, his face was immediately embarrassed, but he still said cheekily, brother-in-law, I didn't run away, I was looking for someone to save you. Ji Yufeng, get out of here. Ji Linger stepped forward to grab Ji Yufeng's ear and threw Ji Yufeng out. Bang. After closing the door, Ji Linger was still angry. Her younger brother was really not up to expectations, and in the future, when it came to their generation, the Ji family would also be in decline. David took a peek at the angry Ji Linger and couldn't help laughing. What are you laughing? Ji Linger rolled her eyes at David and turned back to the room. The next day, Zhang Zhang initiated a proposal to hold a martial arts alliance conference. In order to hold a martial arts alliance conference, one of the 4 directors must be able to propose it, and the other 3 directors must agree. This martial arts alliance conference can only be held After Zhang Zhengzhang's proposal, the other three had no objection, and the Martial Arts Alliance conference was successfully held at a venue outside the provincial capital. In the main seat of the venue, there are 4 chairs carved from mahogany. This is where the 4 directors of the Martial Arts Alliance sit. Nearly noon, more than 30 martial arts families and martial arts schools have come to participate in the Martial Arts Alliance conference. These martial arts families and martial arts schools are all members of the Martial Arts Alliance. These people waited for more than half an hour before the 4 directors came slowly. From left to right, they are Zhang Zhengzhang of the Zhang family, Wu Lui of the Wu family, Sun Yaobang of the Sun family, Chifeng Tang Chifeng. The strength of the 4 people is all unfathomable, and no one knows their specific strength. The rumors about them are just speculation. Everyone, today I'm calling everyone to hold an alliance meeting again, mainly because of the Wei family. I think everyone knows the relationship between the Zhang family and the Wei family, so all the properties of the Wei family, my Zhang family will take over. If you have a fancy Wei family property, you can tell me, I will transfer it to you at a low price. Zhang Zhengzhang got up directly and said straight to the point. There are dozens of people in the audience, and no one speaks. Who dares to oppose the Zhang family at this time? These people still understand the truth of shooting the first bird with a gun. Humph. Suddenly, Chifeng snorted coldly. Zhang Zhengzhang, the rules of our alliance are that if a business family goes bankrupt or collapses, all the martial arts families or martial arts halls in our martial arts alliance have the right to compete and divide up. Alliance director, don't you know? In the martial arts alliance, whether it is the martial arts family or the martial arts hall, there is the cooperation of the business family behind it. After all, the expenses of these martial arts families and the martial arts hall still need the support of these business families, but these business families also need the support of the martial arts family. However, the alliance has rules, that is, no matter which business family the Martial Dao family cooperates with falls, all the resources of the business family will be divided and competed, but because of the special relationship between the Wei family and the Zhang family, many people want to fight Wei. The family industry has started, but it has been slow to move. It depends on who makes the first move. Chifeng, the Wei family and my Zhang family are not cooperative. The Wei family belongs to my daughter. My daughter died tragically and her bones are still cold. How can I let others divide up the Wei family's property?